Hello and welcome. My name is Grace Lee, and I'm the Business Development Coordinator here at the Law Office of Jeffrey M. Hash. And I'm here with Jeff today. We're here as part of our Just Help series, and we want to have a conversation about the intersection of AI in the workplace. So obviously this is a huge topic, and we're not going to be able to cover everything in just one session, but we're excited to get the conversation rolling. So what we'd like to do is just start to tackle this through the lens of a few questions, and we'll start out with just a few key issues. And then, if you're up for it, we'd love to make another video with additional questions later on down the road. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I think from my perspective, today's goals are a little bit paradoxical. On one hand, we're going to be providing a very high level overview. And at the same time, we're hopeful to provide some practical and immediately applicable key takeaways and tools to help you navigate an area that's shifting, frankly, faster than anything I've ever seen in my 23 years of practicing employment law. There are just two quick housekeeping notes before we get started that I like to put out there. First one, as the name implies, just help. This is just help. It's not legal advice. Receive it for what it is, and that is help. And the second thing, consistent with some of the tips that we'll share in just a few minutes, I do want to disclose that we did use AI, artificial intelligence, to help with this video. What you are seeing right now are real people live. We are not avatars. We didn't use AI in that way, although that is a possibility, believe it or not. But we did use AI to help generate some ideas around questions specifically. So I did want to disclose that. We actually use a specialized platform called StrongSuit to generate questions, as well as an infographic that we will make available that kind of summarizes everything that we're going to be talking about today in one quick snapshot. So with those two quick housekeeping notes, should we jump into it, Grace?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
So, what are some simple workplace policies that you think would make employees and employers feel safer and more clear about how they use AI?
Yeah, but before you worry about, a policy with all the bells and whistles that covers everything
Mhm.
possible, I wouldn't worry about that because this is an area that's changing so fast. Your policy is going to be out of date before you even finalize it.
Mm,
Instead, what I would do is start with a simple acceptable use checklist, what I think of as an acceptable use checklist. Depending on your business, depending on your nonprofit, you might be using different types of GPTs. So
mhm,
identify, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable to run through
mhm.
those systems. That gets especially tricky around your client information.
Okay.
And second thing I would do is have a policy that requires or include in that policy
Mhm,
the requirement that any AI generated content is clearly labeled so that recipients, whether it's internal or external recipients, so
mhm,
that they know that content was produced or assisted by AI. I think that goes a
mhm,
long way in helping trust.
mhm,
Third thing I would do, both in practice and as part of your policy, I
mhm,
would establish at least minimum verification standards before any AI work product goes out externally. So you want to check your facts, you want to check the tone, you want to check for things like brand issues, brand consistency. Make
mhm,
sure there's some process to check those types of things before it goes out, either internally and definitely before it goes out externally.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
then once you have the basic policy in place, I would make sure that you have literally on your calendar
Mhm,
um, dates to check in and update your policies frequently.
mhm.
I would do it at least once per quarter, ideally every month right now, given how
Okay.
fast these things are changing.
What about for leaders? How can they help set the tone so that employees are able to view AI as a helpful tool rather than a threat?
Um, I think regardless of where you're at on the tech spectrum, whether you're
Mhm,
really comfortable and embracing new technology or whether you're more resistant to it, I think everyone, if they're being honest, is a little fearful of AI right now
mhm.
for
Yeah.
understandable reasons. So I would be transparent about that as a leader. Acknowledge your concerns about AI.
Mhm,
Communicate transparently
mhm,
about your concerns and about your goals. and
Mm-hmm.
really frame AI as a productivity, a creativity, an
Mm-hmm.
enablement tool, and not part of your headcount strategy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then next question here, how can teams ensure that AI tools don't unintentionally disadvantage certain employees or certain customers?
I'd like to focus my discussion on kind of internal use and
Mm-hmm.
operations and how teams can ensure those AI tools don't disadvantage people internally that are already in your workplace,
Yeah.
or your customers, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an area that's especially important to me, given my own interest around areas of disability and age
Mm-hmm.
discrimination, my advocacy in those areas,
Yeah.
as well as my interest in technology and really leveraging technology to provide
Mm-hmm.
the best service possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fascinating question, and there are a couple different ways we could go with this. One of the things I would do, trying to keep an eye on practicality, as you are looking at implementing a specific AI platform or a specific AI tool,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would encourage you to develop a sample group that is diverse as possible
Mm-hmm.
across all lines, age, socioeconomic, race,
Mm-hmm.
religion, gender, everything, all of your EEO categories and more.
Yeah.
Um, Gather that group, relatively small, and try that platform out with that group.
Mm-hmm.
A group of real users, before you roll it out to a larger group. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
do a couple things. One, it's a team building exercise in and of
Yeah.
itself, just
Mm-hmm.
bringing that group together. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also going to help you identify issues that come up, and then identify whether you can work around that concern, whether it's through training or a tweak to the platform.
Mm-hmm.
There are any number of ways, but using that small sample group of
Mm-hmm.
diverse people will help you identify what those issues are. And some could be
Okay.
just general issues, or some could be because of those different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the most practical and easiest things you could do.
Mm-hmm.
I touched on training, and
Mm-hmm.
training is hugely important when it comes to AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive or weeks-long training, but you need to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of that training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, as you look at investing in AI, keep in mind you are also going to need to invest in that training. And as you invest in the training,
Mm-hmm.
with an eye towards making sure you're not disadvantaging certain people, think about the formats for that training.
Mm-hmm.
So the more diversified you can make that training, the more
Yeah.
success you're likely to have in implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And at all points, I touched on this earlier in the leadership context, but at all points through this process,
Mm-hmm.
don't just have an open door policy, but be an open door. Invite that
Mm-hmm.
feedback from employees in real time,
Mm-hmm.
or representatives of employee groups, depending on how big your workforce is,
Mm-hmm.
to really issue spot, troubleshoot,
Yeah.
and be prepared to either pause the rollout or
Mm-hmm.
pivot as you need
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that it is not disadvantaging anyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Are there any other tips that you have for employees in terms of what they need to do to work effectively with AI and what can employers do to help with that skill development?
Yeah, this is another area that is constantly shifting as the platforms grow
Hmm.
and become more and more capable. But one
Yeah.
thing that I think is a required skill, a fundamental required skill right now, and I think it will continue to be, is
Hmm.
the ability to what I call write prompts. Prompt writing is key.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to use any of the GPT models, at least,
Hmm.
needs to figure out how to talk with the platform. And that
Oh.
talking, that communication is really done through the prompt writing. So
Hmm.
the axiom of garbage in, garbage out is absolutely true here. So the
Hmm.
cleaner, the more concise, the more specific your prompt is, the
Hmm.
better the outcome you're going to get.
Hmm.
And their prompt writing is absolutely a skill. It's one that can be developed. There are lots of resources to help you develop prompts, but just trial and error is a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get better at it, you will see the different types of prompts that you need day in and day out for the work that you're doing. You can
Mm-hmm.
have, I actually have a prompt library that I go to over and over, so I don't have to redo it every time. I just change some of the
Mm-hmm.
specifics. So that prompt writing is really important.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of other things that employers can do, and this goes back to the idea that training does not have to be weeks long or involve
Mm-hmm.
outside consultants necessarily.
Yeah.
I would say short, practical training sessions are the
Mm-hmm.
best. We're talking 15 minutes to an hour, in a shot is going to be the best.
Okay.
And really focus that on common workflows in your workplace, not
Mm-hmm.
everything there is to know about AI, but
Yeah.
just what do you really need to know for your workplace,
Mm-hmm.
and start there.
What about work product created by AI? Do you have any tips for that?
It's an evolving area of the law that really involves issues around intellectual property,
Mm-hmm.
as well as contract law, trade secrets, and frankly, just plain honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, th- this goes back to why I said what I did at the top of the conversation about disclosure. There are evolving issues around who owns what and when they
Mm-hmm.
own things.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, be aware that there might be an ownership, there probably is an ownership issue between you as the AI user, the
Mm-hmm.
AI platform, and your client if you're creating work that is for a client,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're involved in things that are graphic in nature, videos, images, things like that, or the content, any other content that could be monetized.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware that this ownership issue is a significant potential issue.
Yeah.
So you want to do a couple things around that. You want to get clarity as much as you can, recognizing it's an evolving issue. You want to
Mm-hmm.
get clarity around who owns it.
Mm-hmm.
So start by reviewing the terms and conditions of the platform, the AI
Okay.
platform that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, they will specify who owns, whether they will specify if they claim any ownership rights,
Mm-hmm.
or what degree of creation must be involved by you before it's yours and not
Mm-hmm.
theirs. So
Gotcha.
start by reviewing those terms and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you want to do is review your contract with your client, to
Okay.
make sure this issue of ownership is addressed, just so
Mm-hmm.
that there are no surprises later on.
Well, this is so helpful. We've covered so much and I'm learning so much and I'm sure that anyone watching will be too, but I know there's still so much to cover. So, how would you feel about making kind of like a part two and answering more questions on this intersection of AI in the workplace?
Yeah, you heard me say several times this is beyond the scope of our discussion today. So obviously there's
Yeah.
a lot more we could discuss. And I would invite anyone who's viewing this, if you
Hmm.
have specific questions about
Hmm.
the intersection of AI in the workplace, reach
Hmm.
out and let us know. We're happy to address those questions. You can send an email,
Hmm.
probably to you, Grace,
Yeah.
would be the best, the quickest way to get a response.
Hmm.
So yeah, stay tuned for at least part two, maybe parts three
Hmm.
and four.
Great. Yeah. Yes. And please do feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Jeff, for all of this information. And we hope this has been helpful. And we're really looking forward to getting to talk more about this in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Grace. Take care.
Thanks. Okay.